And do you think it did come across as a snarky comment?
Why don't you wear a suit? Why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest level in this country's office and you refuse to wear a suit. Just want to see if do you own a suit?
Oh, I'm sure it did. I know by the thousands and tens of thousands of comments I've gotten on social media, death threats, phone calls. I don't know how they got my number. I think the world took it as a snarky comment. That wasn't really my intention.
Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for talking to us. Yep. I wonder if I could begin by asking you, on Friday, why you asked President Zelenskyy, why don't you wear a suit?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. We have been covering, obviously, the events in Ukraine since it started. And I've been on the campaign trail with President Trump for many years. And as Americans get kind of engaged in what's going on, that was one of the questions that many Americans had, is why doesn't the president, Zelenskyy, wear a suit when he goes to these very high-level meetings, whether it's in the U.S., whether it's over in Europe. And when you look at the several dignitaries that seem to have a level of respect for their office, I just asked the questions that many Americans were asking at home, and that's kind of what I've been doing for a while. So I didn't mean to come off as a snarky comment, although I do feel like when Zelenskyy got out of the car and met President Trump at the West Wing, that's, if you probably saw, where President Trump mentioned that it looks like he got dressed up. So I thought I would ask him, why didn't he wear a suit?
And do you think it did come across as a snarky comment?
Oh, I'm sure it did. I know by the thousands and tens of thousands of comments I've gotten on social media, death threats, phone calls. I don't know how they got my number. I think the world took it as a snarky comment. That wasn't really my intention. My intention was just to see if he understood the level of respect that people have when they go into the Oval Office. Now, a lot of people will say, well, why doesn't Elon Musk wear a suit? Why does he wear a hat? Why does he take his kid into the Oval Office? Well, Elon Musk is in charge of saving, billions of dollars of taxpayer dollars going over to different, organizations. Zelenskyy has been given, some say, close to $300 billion in cash and military equipment. So I would think at that point, it does warrant him showing a little bit of respect. I said this earlier, Victoria, and I think it's very appropriate for this particular situation. Sometimes you can judge a book by its cover, and by his lack of respect for his attire did come across later throughout the interview when they got in that heated exchange with Vice President J.D. Vance and President Trump. But it was not my intention to spark that. I was just making an observation.
A couple of things to pick you up on there, if I may, Mr. Glenn. The US hasn't given $300 billion worth of aid. I know President Trump has said it a number of times, but it's more like $119 billion, according to a think tank in Germany who actually tracks what goes into Ukraine. And in terms of your point about his attire, many people are saying, look, this is a guy at war. He's been leading his country bravely through this war against Russia for 3 years, and probably what he's wearing is the last thing on his mind.
Yeah, and I agree with that. But to my point, the war is not in the West Wing and the Oval Office in Washington, D.C. The war is back in Ukraine. And let me be really clear on this, Victoria, because this is some of the hate that I've gotten online. President Trump, I just left the Roosevelt room. President Trump wants nothing more than peace in that region, wants to stop this war. Matter of fact, my first question, Victoria, was about his legacy going down as a peacemaker and someone who stopped a war and didn't start any wars that the U.S. got involved. So that was my first question. So, this is something that he wants to end. And to be honest with you, 2,700 people, Ukrainian men, and you know this, you report on this, die a day in Ukraine. And that is a concern of the president, and that is why he wanted to make this deal and stop the war. So I'd like to focus more on the peace aspect of this rather than a snarky comment, if you would, about his attire. And mind you, many Americans are thinking about this. Here's the deal. 99.99% of the people watching this interview right now did not vote in the 2024 presidential election. But they do want to see the war end, like we do as well. And so if people are so bent out of shape about my question about what he's wearing, I think the bigger picture should be, why didn't Volodymyr Zelenskyy just go in, show a certain level of appreciation and respect for what we've given him? Now, we don't know really how much we've spent because no one can account for the missing military weapons and cash that's been brought there. So whatever think tank there in Germany is tracking this, from our side of things, we can't even get a clear accounting of that. But numbers aside, the goal here was to achieve peace. That's what we need to do. And I will say this, if Zelenskyy comes back to the Oval Office and he's wearing a suit, let me be the first person, Victoria, to shake his hand and to congratulate him and apologize for that comment. I'll be more than happy to do that.
I mean, I'm sure somebody else has said this to you, but obviously when Winston Churchill went to see Roosevelt during the Second World War in the White House, he was wearing military fatigues. Was he showing disrespect?
Well, I wasn't alive then. I wasn't there to watch that.
You've got a view.
I'm not going to comment that. But what I'm saying is, if you guys are trying to get this, it's all about the wardrobe, and that's what I've been the biggest excuse. Why isn't why aren't we talking about peace? 2,700 men, Ukrainian men, die a day, and we're going to argue about, well, Winston Churchill was wearing military fatigues, and is that okay? Elon Musk wears, a T-shirt, a jacket, and a hat, and brings his kids, and, I don't know why this is still an argument. I really don't. If it means that much to you guys, then, congratulations. You guys just made a deal with Zelenskyy a few days ago. And, he wore a tracksuit to meet your king there. Now, hopefully that wasn't offensive to you guys. But look, whatever.
Let me ask you about something that President Trump has said tonight. He has criticised on Truth Social President Zelenskyy again, and he said America will not put up with it for much longer. What do you think he means by that?
Well, obviously, I can't speak for the president. But I think that what we don't want is Zelenskyy to draw this thing out. Let me ask you a question. Would you like to see the war end today, right now? And I'm assuming the answer is yes. But if Zelenskyy views this war as some type of conveyor belt of U.S. tax dollars and money going to Ukraine with no intention of a ceasefire, then I think we all need to take a step back. But I don't know what President Trump meant by that. I know he wants peace. He said that today. He's said it before. No one wants this to go on and perhaps be World War III. None of us want that. None of us want. Let's get peace done. Let's do it. Let's get this mineral rights agreement done as well. And that is one way that U.S. can recoup the hundreds of billions of dollars that we've given Ukraine.
You were there, obviously, when J.D. Vance and President Trump said what they said to President Zelenskyy on Friday. One political leader here in the UK, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, said President Trump and Vice President Vance were guilty of thuggery and bullying. Do you think that's fair?
No, but I don't think it's fair, because if you look at the media coverage the last 4 to 6 years on President Trump, every single news outlet, not only in this country, but around the world, has bullied President Trump. They've lied about him. The American media has. I don't know about BBC, but the American media has lied about President Trump. They've done it from day one, but yet no one calls them out for, quote, bullying. So if Vice President J.D. Vance and President Trump want to ask some tough questions and put him in, front and center in front of all those cameras, that's not bullying. That's being transparent to the American people. Mind you, I really wish that perhaps President Bush would have opened up that Oval Office to the media like President Trump did, so the world could see these highly important decisions being made that could save lives. Victoria, that's what this is about. It's about saving lives and ending this war. If people's feelings get hurt and they feel like it's bullying, then maybe you're not the right person to lead a country. I'm just saying, President Trump is as tough as it gets. He represents Americans. He represents making peace in that region and around the world.
And did you see President Zelenskyy being as tough as he gets? It can't be peace at any cost. It's got to be a sovereign Ukraine. It's got to be backed by US security guarantees, or else President Putin will be right back in there.
Well, we don't necessarily know that, because I think when President Trump gets involved with the deal, you see the absolute fear on the faces of people involved. So if this deal is done and there's no troops on the ground for security, kind of a backstop, if you will, Victoria, in all due respect, I think the world has seen a weak Joe Biden, and they have seen how the U.S. has not stood up to the adversaries in the world. So if President Trump makes a deal and says, you will not invade Ukraine, this thing is over, Victoria, they're not going to do it. We don't need to keep putting people and resources and spending money for people on the ground. It's over. I think the respect for the world they have for, I mean, look at the events on October 7th in Israel. That would have never happened if President Trump was in office. So if President Trump is in office, Vladimir Putin is not going to invade Ukraine. It's over. Get the deal done, get peace, and let's move on and rebuild and help those people suffering in Ukraine. Women, children, babies, a whole generation of men are being wiped out right now. And that's concerning for everyone. That's the biggest point I want to make here, Victoria. We need peace in that region. We cannot go to a World War III if anything escalates any further. And I just pray that something will happen and we'll be able to stop this bloody war.
Brian Glenn, thank you very much for talking to us this evening.